on the third of our wine club webinars, taking you through the tasting of the wine in the box this week. We've sat outside because it's sunny for once, but now we think we might have too much sun, but we're going to bear with it. We're going to bear with it because it is going to be nice and we want to be here. And we should drink wine in the sun, right, Christine?
Absolutely.
Is there any special top tips for drinking wine in the sun? Apart from if it's alcoholic, obviously don't drink too much of it because it's amazing how much alcohol and sun don't mix very well.
No, they don't. If you're drinking wine in the sun, you should be in the sun. The wine should be in the shade.
That's like guru advice.
It is, yeah. And not just because it heats up. Most drinks don't like the light of the sun and they spoil. They get something called light strike.
Light strike?
Yeah, you don't want that.
I don't think my wine ever lasted long enough, Christine, to get light strike.
It can get light strike while it's in your glass, Laura.
What does it do? What does it taste like if it has light strike?
Well, it smells like pond water and it tastes horrible.
I just thought that's because I brought shit wine.
It could also be that. And it, beer, soft drinks, anything.
Can get light strike.
Keep them out of the sun, yeah. Out
of the sun, bit like us. Some cloud will come in a minute, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So we've got 3 wines for you today. We've got the Ariel Chardonnay, which is what we're going to start with. Wait a minute, I'm going to get this the right way around. Ariel Chardonnay.
Yeah.
Then we've got the Rosé, which is actually covered up at the minute just so it doesn't get light strike.
Yeah.
See, I learned so quick.
Because it's not got a dark green bottle, you see. Rosés are often in colourless glass and then
that's even worse.
Yeah.
And then we're finishing off with 9 Elms, which is not a wine, but is something new in this space. And we always like to try and bring you something interesting. So I've asked Christine not to open this bottle immediately because she's got a proper corkscrew. One of these, look.
It's called a waiter's friend.
It was never my friend. I could never get the bottle open quick enough.
Right.
Or at all, to be fair.
No, you can talk through what I'm doing. So
you're taking. You've got the little knife at the end, and you're taking off the wrapper around the outside.
It's called the capsule, and people sometimes try and take it off right at the top here. Don't do that because then wine catches in the little bits that are left over and it drips all over you, and it's not a good look.
Oh yeah, it always gets drippy if you do that.
Always cut it down here, and then you make one sort of vertical cut, and you can kind of scrape it off. Voila!
Oh, excellent. And then the other bit I find, getting the corkscrew in's all right, but then leveraging it up was always difficult. I'm putting you under pressure now, Christine.
Yeah, but this type of corkscrew with this sort of hinge thingy is quite good. So, and you always twist the bottle, twist the corkscrew, and then all you have to do is straighten up, and the screw goes in. So.
And you don't have to put it between your legs to pull the cork out.
No. Because
I feel like I'm not very sophisticated, Christine.
You use look, this kind of, you definitely don't need to do that. You can do this, and then you use the longer part of the arm.
So you use the short bit to get it up first, and then you use
these ones are great. They've got sort of a lip here and a lip there.
I never knew. So that lip there you use to get the first bit of the cork up, and then you move it to that lip there to get the second bit of the cork up. I was 47 years old when I learnt that. Hooray! New skills!
Right, let's pour some of this then.
There's some wine for you.
Okay, let me pour for you.
So this is the Ariel Chardonnay, and I've now left the price that it is on my bartender.
I don't have the price with me, so that's a disaster. But we do know about Ariel because we did the Ariel Cab Sauv a couple of months ago.
Yes.
And we were quite impressed.
We liked the quality, the cut of their jib.
We did. And we liked the fact that they were old. They were founded in 1985, which is quite old,
Yeah, in this space.
In this space, yeah. And I think it was the Chardonnay that won a medal competing against its alcoholic cousins, this non-alcoholic. So this is Chardonnay.
So, what am I smelling, Christine?
Sorry, I had to swallow. What are you smelling, Laura?
Christine always has a spittoon here, but then she never uses it.
Yeah, but it's because I'm used to tasting wine with alcohol in and you have to spit, and I don't feel right if I don't have a spittoon, so. Okay. So we're smelling actually very Chardonnay-like aromas.
Is that like gooseberries?
bit, yes. So Chardonnay from a warm climate, which California is, Paso Robles, where this comes from, you would expect sort of citrus and some ripe stone fruit, things like yellow plums and, you know, maybe some ripe oranges, that kind of thing.
It's definitely citrusy.
Yeah,
and it's really
definitely
light. So, gosh, I mean, it's interesting how much my wine knowledge has disappeared over, you know, 9 years of not drinking any wine. At least I used to be able to be a little bit more fast about wine, but I don't even know some of the basics anymore. But this feels lovely and light. This is definitely something I'd have with fish, and I love fish dishes. So
I think this is really nice, and it's got with Chardonnay in a wine, what you look for is some creaminess and maybe some buttery notes if it's from California. And I think there's a bit of that here. It's quite a light, fresh style. It's not the big, heavy, buttery styles that you associate with old style alcoholic Chardonnay from California.
yes, I think I might have to start using some tea references to be able to give this some. So yeah, it's got some light green tea notes really in it.
It has.
It's not a heavy tea. It's not a puree. It's got a nice light green teeness to it, which is really fresh.
It's got nice sort of peachy character, which I don't know as much about tea as you do. I don't think anybody does, Laura.
Trust me, there
I
are.
remember having nice teas, green teas from Taiwan, and they had a nice sort of peachy, fragrant.
Yeah, but that butteriness
character.
is also something that comes through from a good oolong, you see. So, and I can get some of that here.
Now this is a very nice sitting outside drink, isn't it?
It is. This is definitely sitting in the sun type of day.
I think this would handle some food because it doesn't just disappear in your mouth, it does leave you. It's got a slight vanilla character on the end. You know when you have ice cream wafers, you know, the old ice cream sandwich with the wafers and the vanilla ice cream? I think it's got a touch of that.
It has. That definitely lingers in your mouth.
Yeah,
and you can say, yes,
yeah.
yes, I've drunk something, and yes, it was delicious, and it's still there. Which also I really like, because it also, you know, that's also the thing that helps slow down your drinking, because you're still feeling that drink in your mouth afterwards. You're not desperate to have another hit of sugary drinks. Want you to have another hit of sugary drink very quickly.
And actually, the word sugary, it's really interesting. This is dry. This is not sweet. And sweet is always that thing that a lot of alcohol-free, de-alcoholized wines have sometimes too much sweetness, and this doesn't, does it?
No.
I like it.
I was last week I went to Malden, which is on the Essex coast.
Yeah.
And for the first time in ages, I had a fish platter that had on it crab claws and crab meat and all of that sort of stuff. And this would have been beautiful with it.
Well, do you know, it's really funny. I was just going to say, this is kind of shellfishy to me. Sort of,
Definitely.
I can imagine it with mussels or, you know, any kind of shellfish or, as you say, crab. Yeah, crab claws. Definitely.
Trying to think of a vegan alternative option to recommend people, and I'm struggling a bit.
Oops.
We're going to have to get a bit more vegan with the food pairing. In terms of, so this again has been de-alkalized, which nearly all of the alcohol-free wines are.
It has, and like nearly all of the alcohol-free wines, it starts off being made as a wine. Then it goes through a process which in this case is reverse osmosis, which is one of the two sort of famous processes for removing the alcohols. There's reverse osmosis and there's spinning cone. And the general thinking is that the reverse osmosis is the more expensive version. I don't personally find much difference in the finished
interesting.
drop. Not so far, I haven't. But yes, and it's, you know, it's a gentle process. It's cool temperature, it's gentle, and you get to keep quite a lot of the wine character. And I think that shows here. I think it works.
And calorie-wise? Not that it's the most important thing, guys, because at the end of the day, you're not going to eat extra calories the following day with a hangover.
So it's quite interesting, because we noticed this on the Ariel Red when we tried it. They quote the calories per serving, which they say is 240 ml, about a third of the bottle. So they reckon 45 kilocalories per 240 ml. This glass, I don't think would even hold 240 ml, or if it did, it would be,
right up on the edge.
Right up there, so quite a big portion.
So actually that's not bad for 45 cows. Compared to normal
really
wine,
not.
that would be a good 100 odd.
Oh yeah.
not more.
Chardonnay, probably a bit more.
Yeah,
Californian Chardonnay, yeah.
It's a long time since I've put any alcoholic wine in my fitness pal, so
No.
I don't quite know.
Chardonnay quite often has a fair bit of alcohol in it, particularly from warm places like California. So you know, it's not unusual to see 14% and even 14 and
that would whack the calories right
it would,
up.
Definitely, yeah, it would.
So it's something like 9 calories per gram of alcohol or something, or milliliter.
Something like.
It was quite a lot. I remember reading once.
I'm going to finish this.
In fact, I'm going to have to look that up for next time. So that's awesome. Right, so
That was a nice start. I like that.
It is. That was really lovely. I'm looking forward to finishing that off with you afterwards, Christine.
Yes.
Right, this is the wine that we saved from Lightning Strike. No, not Lightning.
Light
Strike.
Light Strike.
Lightning Strike is a whole other thing.
It is, yeah.
And this is the Syrah from José Maria de Fonseca, which is Portuguese.
It is, and in fact, I think being Portuguese, it's José Maria de Fonseca.
Oh.
You know, like the special one, José Maria. Yeah.
Okay. I will. That's my pronunciation corrected. I can open this bottle.
You can.
This is my
It's a screw cap.
expertise.
Yeah.
Screw cap.
Go for it. You can have a new glass if you want.
Yeah. Do you want a new one?
Yeah.
There we are.
Let's do it.
Because we are professionals.
We are professionals.
We are.
Wine glasses, of course.
Nope.
Thank
Got
you.
enough. There we are.
Oh, that came out with some bubbles. It's not a sparkling wine.
It's not meant to be sparkling, but it's
no.
definitely bubblier than the Chardonnay we've just had.
Yeah, that's not uncommon with wine. CO2 is part of the process quite often, not just because when you ferment something with yeast you get CO2, but most wines that are meant to be sort of fruity and fresh tasting, they'll often be made under a blanket of CO2 or other gas that stops oxygen getting in to spoil them. So you often get a bit of that left in the bottle. It doesn't mean it's going to be sparkly.
No. I can already smell raspberries.
Oh, totally. That just
I've got one right. I've got a description right.
that screams raspberries. It's actually really appetizing.
And no, now once you said screams, I was thinking, oh, cream as well.
Well, taste
Creamy
it.
raspberries.
Actually, some of the CO2 is there. You get a little bit of a spritziness in the mouth.
Ooh, I wasn't expecting that. It's because it smells fruitier than it is on the palate, on the mouth, on the tongue, on the general mouthage area.
Give it time. I tasted mine before you, and I've now got this really strong raspberry, strawberry, cream, scone, clotted cream, afternoon tea.
Cream first or jam?
Staycation kind of flavour. Cream first. No, I'm staying out of that. Either way is fine by me.
This is delightful.
This is really lovely, isn't it?
I feel like I should be watching some tennis or some cricket or something.
Yeah, absolutely. This is... The interesting thing is, at first taste, you think this is a bit sweeter. It certainly doesn't have the kind of bone-dry character of the Ariel Chardonnay. But actually, it's really fruity. And when you taste wine, it can be quite hard to tell what's sweetness and what's fruitiness. And there's a little bit of sweetness there, but this is really fruity. This is delicious.
It is, and you're right that explosion carries on in the mouth afterwards, and that's really lovely. Yeah.
This is a really interesting wine producer, actually. So we said that the Ariel Chardonnay is from an old established company. Well, this is quite a bit older. This company was established in 1834.
Wow.
And the 8th generation is currently involved in running it. So family business. Now, in fairness, they haven't been making anything alcohol-free all of that time. Ariel beats them on that.
Yeah.
But the really nice thing is the guy who's the head of the company now, who is, it's a family company, Domingo Suarez Franco, he's been the senior winemaker for over 40 years, and he's really well known for pushing the boundaries and using both very traditional and very modern methods. And he's won awards and things. He's very highly respected. It's one of Portugal's most famous wine producers. But it's kind of typical that he would make something like this, a really lovely alcohol-free wine, whilst at the same time exploring things like, if you're geeky, he makes wines that ferment in clay pots, and he makes some really astonishing sweet wines. The part of Portugal they're in is quite famous actually for something called Setúbal.
What's Setúbal?
It's a place, but it's also a wine. So I don't know if does it say it on the bottle? It looks like Setúbal, but you pronounce it Setúbal. Probably doesn't. But that's where they're based. It's a peninsula just south of Lisbon. If you're in Lisbon, you can easily go and spend a day in Setúbal, and it's quite an interesting area, and it's famous for these really, 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 really sweet wines. But this is a company that's famous for far more than that. All sorts of different wines, and they've got history with rosé. So if you go back to the 60s, the 70s, before your time, the famous rosé wines would have been Matthias Rosé and Lancers with these people. One of the kind of top rosé wines for decades. So,
do you know how long they've been making the alcohol free? I'm really interested that this is part of their innovation pipeline.
Yeah. I don't know when they started. I
know this is new to Wise Bartender.
I think it's quite recent, actually.
So that means there's loads more to come if we give them great feedback and stuff. Because,
definitely.
I think they've gone for very simple label. I'm not sure how that compares with their other brands, but part of me thinks there should be some excitement to come in this space a little bit.
Yeah, possibly. Although I quite like the way they've called it original, but with the 0% at the beginning of the word original, which is nice. It's 0.5%, which is pretty much everything is here tonight.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was just saying that, it's a really interesting space. Like, you had all those new wines coming in, and the way that all the labels changed over the years, and it all got a bit more funky, and everyone had, like dog wine and all of that sort of stuff, which I used to think was hilarious and lovely, and would pick them up.
Critter wines.
And things like that. And so, with great names from Australia. And then I think somewhere... alcohol-free wines will need to get its identity, and that will be part of the attraction and the innovation in this space too.
Yeah, I think so, and I think a company like José Maria de Fonseca is capable of doing that. And there's a red that I think we might be able to try in a future monthly tasting.
There is, and they've got a white as well, and I don't think we've tried that either.
No,
so
I'd really like to.
We've only done 3 of these, and we've already forgotten what we've tasted. We sat there early going, what's next? Did we taste that last month? Good job we're keeping a list.
Are we keeping a list?
There is a list.
Oh, there's a list.
You'll be all right.
Good. Okay.
We've got your back, Christine. So we'll be all right.
I kept thinking I ought to make a list and put it at the bottom of my crib sheet that you always laughingly refer to, but my memory is not there.
No, it's fine. I have to stop myself looking over your notes and and saying what's on there. If it helps, when I was in local government on elections on the council, I used to be able to read the Labour members' notes opposite from upside down. I was a very good long distance reader and read the upside down notes and go and make the points ahead of them. It was great fun. So you can stop me. You can tell me off.
Okay, no, that's okay. Well, now, given that I'm wearing sunglasses, I can't actually read them properly anyway. But there you go. You can.
Well, this has got 19 calories per 100 ml. So actually, compared to the other, it's not far off the same. Actually,
almost the same.
Yeah.
Actually, and considering it tastes quite a bit sweeter, I think that proves my point that what we're tasting is fruitiness and not sugar. That said, I don't think this is as immediately sort of demanding food. I think I could kind of imagine, being outside with a barbecue or a picnic and drinking this. I'm not sure it's for Sunday roast or...
No, but you're right. The minute I tried the white, I was like, it took me to particularly fish dishes.
To food.
This, I could quite happily sit and drink without food. And since drinking alcohol-free wine, I've been very much a convert to drinking wine with food. I know that sounds weird, right? But, if you'd met me when I was drinking, I didn't need much excuse to drink wine. But this is one where I'm like, that's fine. I can sit the afternoon just, talking with friends on a terrace and have that, and don't need to eat with it.
It's it's a very British thing. So most countries that have a tradition of drinking wine drink wine with food, and they don't have a culture of drinking wine other than with food. But us Brits have a definite culture of just drinking wine because we want to drink wine, and the idea of drinking it with food was almost an afterthought.
Well, I have some theories around some of that, because the wine consumption in this country went up at a very particular point in time, which was probably in my recollection around the sort of early 90s, when the supermarket started to stock it. And it was also around the time that cross-gendered socialising happened. So it wasn't the men went to the pub and the women stayed at home. Couples sat at home in front of the TV and looked after the kids together and drank some wine, or people went out in mixed groups. And therefore wine became what the women drank while the men drank the beer. And that was not necessarily over food until you got to the late 90s, early 2000s. And by that point, the die was cast. It was sit in front of the sofa or... the alternative to beer.
Yes, I think that's right.
There's so much around feminism and equality and alcohol that's fascinating for particularly me in my late 40s and our generation. So, but coming back to the drink itself, this plays perfectly to the British audience. This is just a sit and drink it. Yeah.
Wine.
Love it.
Really
and
lovely.
We have
like
sat
it
and drunk it.
we have. It's dead good.
Oh, so right, that's 2 down. I'm just checking on the questions and checking we're still going, which we are.
Hooray.
I'm always very paranoid that I've got this wrong. So, yeah.
Well, you are the tech guru. This is your job.
Oh, no!
Now, Laura, perhaps you should open this.
No, I won't show you how I've opened bottles of 9 Elms before.
But look, you've just... In fact, you don't even have to do the first part because it's
No,
got
it's the second part that's problematic for me, which is getting the stopper out. Am I just... All right, see, so 9 Elms has this lovely stopper... glass stopper, of which I keep all the stoppers to put in other bottles and then find that it doesn't fit in any other bottle. But what? You don't need to use your teeth. You just have to pull it out like that. You push it.
Yeah. It's called a Vinalock. They're very glamorous. They started mainly on German wine. I have to tell you, I use them all around the garden because, well, I've got all these plant pots that they're called self-watering. They have a reservoir and they have a tube that comes up. Now I've got one over there. You can see the tube sticking up. It needs a top. So after we've drunk the 9 Elms, which is very likely to happen.
You stick your top in there?
Yeah, so that bugs don't crawl down and then surprise me when I...
Are you surprised by bugs often?
Well, if they've got 8 legs, it's not good.
Well, there we are. You push off the top like that. And it has many other uses. I keep them in case I need to put a top on another bottle, but they generally don't tend to fit very well on other bottles, which I feel is a great shame. But
some of them do, but I think this bottle, I suspect, is a slightly different sort of gauge.
Yeah, because it's not quite a wine bottle, is it?
It's not.
Look at this, it's pretty.
It is a beautiful bottle.
It's very beautiful.
But this is not a de-alcoholised wine, is it?
No. Is this engraved, or what's the process on this?
Well, I think it's painted on, but I don't know. It is fabulous. It's a really lovely bottle.
It's beautiful. But yes, you're right. It's not a wine. Tell us what it is.
Well, the people who make it would say it's a Velven.
What? What?
The thing about Velvens is nobody knows what they are yet, and people who are making them don't realise they are. It's just the team at Nine Elms, Simon and Zoltan, they were looking for a way to describe this, and they came up with Velven, and I think it's a brilliant
but
name.
is it just a made up name, or does it come from somewhere?
No, it comes from somewhere.
Okay. Tell us where.
Well, I think when they explained it to me, I think Latin came into it somewhere.
Oh, I'm lost already.
But this is not a de-alcoholized wine. So the other two drinks we've had started off as wine, and they went through a process to take the alcohol out. This never had alcohol, not in the sense that those did. This was never a wine. So this is a blend of berries and botanicals, and it's very clever. We'll taste it and you'll see. But it's designed to give some of the experience that a wine would give, but without going down that route of making a drink and then ripping all the alcohol out and then, trying to make it still taste nice. So they came at it from a completely different direction, and as you know, I'm a fan of this alternatives to wine direction.
Yeah, and it's Nine Elms because it's made with vegetables, which makes it sound terrible, but a mix of things that you'd find at the Nine Elms market in London, right?
Yeah, it's got, I think the name has a bit more to it than that as well. I think it's also about the Vauxhall area, and now this is where my history's not very good. I guess it was Victorian times when there was a pleasure gardens there, which was basically one of the first places that the public could go and be entertained, drink, socialise and see exciting things happen. And the whole philosophy behind Nine Elms is that it's about that sort of having a drink together occasion. And I noticed something which I thought was really lovely, that they support organisations that sort of help with social difficulties and bring people together. So there's kind of a well-being aspect to it, but not just in it's good for me when I drink it. It's about spreading the well-being.
Some lovely open hands here on the bottle. There's also a beetroot, and that might be an artichoke, and a lemon, and raspberries, and grapes, and herbs, to give you some clue on what's in the bottle. They say it's creating a similar way to vermouth.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
Okay, so you say vermouth, I say vermouth. Generation thing, I don't know.
No, I just like...
No, everyone says vermouth now. I'm old-fashioned, I say vermouth.
Vermouth.
Which comes from the German vermouth for wormwood. Anyway, so vermouth is aromatised wine. So you take a wine, for instance, a red wine, you make it, alcohol and everything, and then you steep botanicals in it to add to its flavour. There's often a bitter component and often some sweetness. So vermouths, things like martini rosso, that's the tradition of vermouths. So the way this is made, the fruits are combined to create the liquid, and then it's aromatised, which is the term that's used for vermouths, where the botanicals are put in. But I would say this is kind of, you could say it's like a vermouth, you could say it's like a wine. I think it's maybe halfway.
Yeah, it's not. It's definitely not. This is an equivalent to a vermouth.
No.
Oh God, now I can't even say it now, Christine. But it's not like that. But I can see why the blending process is very similar.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pour some.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you want a fresh glass, or are you right?
Well, I've got this one now, so that's fine.
That's all right.
It certainly looks just like a red wine, doesn't it? It's got a lovely red colour.
And sometimes, oh God, I'm already getting a hit of spices already just from that coming out the bottle. But also sometimes when you've got an alcohol-free red, it can look very thin, and this doesn't, you can't see through it really, and it's got a lovely colour. It's got one
it really does have a great aroma. But, as you say, more spicy and herbal than most red wines. Now, that said, red wines that are aged in oak casks, which is a lot of them, have vanilla and spicy characters to them, so that's very common. And also, there's quite a lot of wines which are sort of famously considered to have a herbal character. Things like wines from the Rhone, things like Côte de Rhone, where they talk about the garrigue, which is all the local sort of wild herbs that grow around the vineyards and the flavour is said to come through in the wine. So it's not far-fetched, the spice and herb characters are not out of place for me.
So the important thing when you're trying something that's in the wine space that isn't a wine is don't expect it to be a wine. It's even less so than the de-alkalized wines, but it's designed to fit into that moment where you would have drunk wine. I think that's really important because if you try and do a direct comparison, it won't feel the same. But you need to learn about the product, which is why we've got
and
it
this
here.
Is interesting, and it's also got a slight mintiness on the nose, which takes me in my wine drinking mind to places like Australia and Chile, where you often get that eucalyptus character. So
it's just an incredibly complex and beautiful drink in its own right, which is why they're right not to compare it with anything and to try and give it its own name. And that minty component, if you're having lamb, that suddenly comes into its own. So unlike the rosé, which you could just sit and drink on your own, of course you can sit and drink this on its own, but this very much changes with every single dish that you have it with. So every time I've had this, it's tasted slightly different.
Me too. This is one of the best drinks with or without alcohol for drinking with food. And it's won awards. I made a note of these. It's won awards as the best food match at the Imbibe Awards. It's won award for excellence food and drink pairings with Lux Life. So it's won several awards, and at least a couple of them are for how well it goes with food.
Yeah.
And it is sensational for that.
The other thing on their website, they've got lots of different cocktail recipes. So again, it's unlike a wine, I think as a cocktail ingredient, it's a great one to have in your cupboard as well, and makes great cocktails. And we've put it in the box with a tonic, which I know may have confused some of you, but Wise Bartender sell tonic bundles with it. I've got it the wrong way around. And that's because they say it makes a great spritz, and this is a version we've never tried before.
That's right. I'm intrigued. I mean, I've had this at room temperature. I've had it over ice, and I've always been so impressed by how versatile it is, not just with different types of food, but the way you serve it. But this is a new one for me.
Just before I go on to that, it actually does well for being slightly chilled, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Like we talked about the reds last time, actually, there's no harm in slightly chilling them, but this definitely does better slightly chilled. Not ice cold necessarily, but
I take issue with does better. In the winter, I wouldn't chill this because it just is really like drinking a nice warming red wine.
Yes, you're right.
In cold weather, but in summer I probably would chill it.
I think they've got some hot drink recipes on their website as well.
I think they have,
to mull it. So you are right.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember talking to the team there about mulling. I was sort of saying, you could mull this, and they were like, yeah, already done that.
Right, so I'm going to make this into a spritz. What do you think the right measures are?
I don't know, but let's...
Do you want some more in there, or do you want me to just put a little bit?
Well, why don't you put a bit of this in, and then... So I'm starting with less 9 Elms and more...
Is that enough? That's a little bit. That's about half and half.
Yeah, half and half.
This is why I don't work in a bar, everybody.
This really interesting thing is...
This tonic's actually very... isn't so bitter and is also lower in sugar, so... but is rhubarb and ginger, which is one of their suggestions. But they have got suggestions on all of their websites around any tonic, really.
What I can smell is still the 9 Elms, still those wonderful aromas.
Ooh, it definitely lengthens it, and I get the nice hint of rhubarb from the 12 Below now as well. I'd like to try it with a really tonic. I know that doesn't sound right because you've got a tonic here, but I consider 12 Below to be a very nice light tonic, which goes really well with all of the alcohol-free spirits because it's not too overpowering, it's not too bitter.
Yeah.
But it'd be really interesting to taste this with a very, like a Fever Tree, which is a lot more bitter in its taste.
Yeah.
And I think it would be different again.
Yeah, this is really, really nice.
Rhubarb and ginger complement there.
Yeah. For me, I think I like it better drunk as a wine, but I have to say I would happily drink it like this, and I think that bottle's going to go.
I also think that you talked about this goes great with food and is a great food pairing, whereas actually made as a spritz and lengthened, it becomes that easy drinking without food drink.
Yeah, totally. And it brings us back to the versatility. This is an astonishing product, quite frankly. I think I'm not at all surprised this has won so many awards, because this is for me one of the most exciting products in the alcohol-free space. And I've always had this thing about we'll know when alcohol-free drinks have really reached their potential when people are trying to make alcoholic versions of them. And for me, 9 Elms is kind of approaching that. I think it's that good. And it is so versatile. It really does work for cocktails, amazing with food, by itself, chilled, room temperature.
And mulled at Christmas.
I'm sounding a bit like a disciple, aren't I?
You are, but I was also thinking that, but it is important because we bring you things that aren't quite wine, and maybe things that you've not tasted before.
Yeah.
And until you're encouraged to give them a bit more of a try and to understand the complexity of flavours underneath, it's really easy to dismiss a drink in its first mouthful.
Yeah.
And it's partly why I wanted to do the wine club with you, Christine, because you're better at tasting than me and you've got a whole history of doing this. And I have discovered that out of everything in alcohol free, the more I'm encouraged to have a second sip and to let that drink linger and to learn a bit more about it and understand that there are complexities there. You know, I'm not very good at complexity. I listen to hardcore techno all day, but the more I'm encouraged to do that, the greater an experience I have, and then I find things that I like. And ultimately, that's what happens with alcohol for all of us, really.
Yeah,
we go and have a drink with a friend. The friend tells us why they've picked the drink that they've got. And so next time we go to the shop, we're more likely to pick up that drink and understand a bit more that increases our appreciation about it.
Absolutely. And I think traditionally with alcoholic drinks, you go to a restaurant and the sommelier is able to tell you, yes, you're going to have fish, so you should have a nice chablis, or you're going to have steak, so you should have a nice Barolo, and they can tell you why that is. And there's kind of an understood pattern of which wines go with which foods, which dishes, and what to expect from them. But I think in the non-alcoholic space, that doesn't exist in a sense, and I think that's what we're trying to help build an understanding of what the different drinks do.
People need to know that there's boxes of drinks out there and we just started fighting over them.
Yeah, it's true, actually.
I said, shall I take this one back to try? And Christy goes, no, that one I'm trying. And that's good to know, right? We're fighting over the alcohol-free drinks and a box,
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. And we're going to bring more of them to you in future months.
Yeah, definitely.
So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you give all of these a really good try and ask us any other questions, and I can pick them up again afterwards if you're watching this on Watch Again. All right. Thank you, Christine.
Definitely. Thank you, Laura.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.